Greetings world. We are anonymous.
The U.S. Department of Defense has secured its takeover of the American government and is now in full battle mode for its next assault against its deep state enemies, currently waging war against President Donald Trump, but that Federation experts warn could lead to nuclear war. The American deep state is a confederation of Central Intelligence Agency (CIA) operatives who have permeated every branch of the U.S. government since the early 1950s, and who, in 2016, were exposed by Udo Elfgett, the assistant editor for the German mainstream media newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeinstung, as being in control of the entire Western mainstream media, and for his exposing them, was assassinated just prior to his meeting with then-President-elect Trump. With this deep state transcending all U.S. laws and having sold out the Pentagon's counter-terror efforts in order to keep itself in business, then-candidate Trump aligned himself with the American military establishment to gain the presidency, and who, after taking power, has appointed to his cabinet more generals than any other U.S. leader since World War II. The most important observable military leaders appointed by President Trump to fight the deep state are General James Mattis, who now heads the Pentagon, General John Kelly, who now heads the Department of Homeland Security, former U.S. Navy SEAL Ryan Zink, who now leads the Department of Interior, and former U.S. Army officer Mike Pompeo, who now heads the CIA. Likewise, the most important non-observable military leaders appointed by President Trump are Jeff Sessions, who now heads the Department of Justice, Rex Tillerson, who heads the Department of State, and Rick Perry, who heads to the Department of Energy, which is the ministry in charge of America's nuclear arsenal, currently under civilian, not military, control. Critical to note about Trump's non-observable military leaders Jeff Sessions, Rex Tillerson and Rick Perry, is that all of them are Vietnam War-era Eagle Scouts who were deferred from fighting in this conflict by the Pentagon in order for them to become established political and business leaders put into positions of power to further the goals and aims of the U.S. military against their deep state CIA adversaries. Completing the U.S. military takeover of the American government was President Trump, yesterday, appointing former U.S. Marine General Randolph Ice to head the Secret Service, SS, that protects his and his family's life, and that was critical to achieve as the last president to fight against the CIA's deep state. President John F. Kennedy was allowed to be assassinated when his Secret Service protectors abandoned him in Dallas, Texas, when they were called off from their positions at the back of his limousine, thus allowing assassins to blow his head off minutes late, with some American experts questioning if President Trump has lost control over the Pentagon. Security Council analysts, instead, state that the new powers he's given to these generals is but another crucial step the U.S. military has taken against the CIA's deep state, but whose unintended consequences could very well lead to nuclear war. To understand the Federation's nuclear war fears is due to the U.S. military's current doctrine of deterrence equals capability x national interest x signaling, which is an aggressive formula at odds from the deterrence chaos theory that guided both the U.S. and USSR through the Cold War and kept World War III from destroying the entire world. Most worrisome about this doctrine is the signaling component of this equation that calls for maximum pressure that is now being seen as the Americans and their NATO allies continue their forceful advance against Russia, and even more dangerously, installing their feared THAAD missile defense system in South Korea, with Security Council spokesman Nikolai Patrushev stating just hours ago that we should not underestimate the North Korean issue, as external provocations have put parties to the conflict on the brink of war. Most feared by the Federation is that President Trump and his Pentagon backers will fail to stop a CIA deep state escalation of this conflict called a false flag event, to which a response would most likely be a nuclear missile launch, i.e. World War III.